Good, excellent. Now, first of all, thanks to you guys from HighEasy. This has been a really simple process. It's been great to deal with you, and I'm really excited for my presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Now, who am I? Now, I'm actually just going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say I am who I am today, partly down to Shannon, the marketing guru at HighEasy. It was actually Shannon who asked me to come and do a keynote in Seattle, all the way from South Africa in 2019, the exact same month that I launched my own business, and it was the best launch pad I ever could have had. So Shannon, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Now, what I want to quickly do is I just want to quickly open up the chat over here. Hey, everyone, good to see you. And just a little bit of an introduction to who I am. Thanks to Jim, great speaker who spoke ahead of me today. Also met Jim in 2018 at the SourceCon conference in Budapest, and then also saw him in Seattle last year when I came over to present too. So really, really great guy and fantastic presentation. So as Amy mentioned, I'm a global talent sourcing trainer. I train teams all over the world. I'm often up at like ridiculous o'clock in the morning to train out to Australia and New Zealand, or late at night, like tonight, training you folk in predominantly North America. So it's 8:30 here at night at the moment. So I'm looking forward to getting this done and then going to sit and watch some mindless TV to get my ADHD brain to switch off so that I can get to sleep. So I'm still active in the sourcing space, and that's how I know I can wholeheartedly recommend HighEasy to everyone that I'm training. It's an amazing tool. I use it extensively when I'm working on my sourcing projects. The functionality is great. So it was an absolute pleasure when Shannon reached out and asked me to be part of this year's RecruitCon. I have been really busy this year. I've built an online academy, which has been amazing. I have really enjoyed changing things up a bit, not delivering as much training and watching people progress through my academy. And at the moment, the reason why I'm here in a bit of an echoey shell is we're in the process of moving home. We're moving to a place called Plettenberg Bay in South Africa. I encourage you guys to go and Google it. It's the most beautiful place in the world. I'm really excited to be moving here permanently, and I encourage everyone to visit. And as mentioned, I do have ADHD, which I like to refer to as ADD in high definition. So if anyone else, and there's a lot of us in the sourcing space, feels that you have the same affliction, give me a shout in the chat, because it is a thing. Now, you've got to have some side hustles, right? My side hustles include, I do a lot of keynote speaking. I do a lot of traveling around the world, delivering keynote presentations, which I love. I love travel. And also, when I'm not working, I like to go and spend some time in the bush. These are some of my photos. We have lots of that in South Africa, and it goes hand in hand with quite a bit of gin and tonic drinking, which is great. Now, before I start, I actually just want to quickly talk to you about my sourcing philosophy, because it leads in really, really nicely to what I'm going to be talking about today, which is focusing on the outreach and when it comes to reaching out to passive talent. So these are the three pillars that I've literally built my online academy. And I believe that if you can master these three things, basically, you are going to be an amazing sourcer of talent. And I wanted a big one for job titles. If you've ever got an email from me, you know that I call myself the head cheerleader, because quite frankly, when you own your own business, you can call yourself whatever you want. But if you are responsible for finding people, these are the three things, the three pillars that I really want you to focus on. And the first thing is all about your digital footprint and having a solid online brand. And this is why I get to travel around the world, speak at conferences, is because I'm noisy online. I stand out, I have an opinion, I give lots of advice away for free, and I really enjoy sharing with other people. Now, a big part of getting a response, as we've spoken about when we are looking at outbound messages to passive talent, is how do we look online? Because we don't realize that people go and Google us. We just think they're looking at our LinkedIn profiles, because us as recruiters live and breathe LinkedIn all day, every day. But have you thought about what comes up when you Google yourself? So go and quickly do that. Go and Google yourself. What pops up? What do you look like on the other social platforms these days? And that's something that's really important for you to consider. The second thing is we really have to break out of our addiction of looking where everybody else is looking. I don't want to talk about anyone in particular, especially not the blue devil, but I do want to say that we need to start using the whole internet. It's there, it's at our fingertips. And that's another thing that I love about HighEasy is that it searches across so many different platforms. And there are so many people that are outside the normal places that we are looking and relying on, like job boards and other platforms. And the third thing is what we're going to be focusing on today, and that is it's all about your outreach. So when you are sending outbound messages, what are you saying to passive talent? Because we all want to get a response from these people, because as the world gets bigger, the requirement for the skills that are really scarce skills becomes a lot bigger, yet people aren't always that happy to move around as much as they did previously. So guys, this is it. My 3 points. If you can master these, you are going to be really successful. And being successful in our industry means you're going to have quite a well-padded back pocket. And that's also really important. So guys, please will you feel free to drop some questions into the chat. I am monitoring it, happy to answer them as we go through. Now, basically, the truth of the matter is I've been delivering talent sourcing training for 5 years now. I absolutely love what I do. I'm passionate about it. But the one area that so many people struggle with is getting a response from passive talent. Not a lot of people talk about it, as Shannon was talking about, who's measuring response rates these days, who's measuring them effectively. But really, this is a huge area in our industry. How do we get people who are not even on the market? How do we get them to respond to us? Max's question is, what is my favorite sourcing platform? I can easily answer that. I have a couple, but my top ones are YouTube. I love sourcing on YouTube because it's amazing the people that you can find there, either running their own channels or being interviewed on webinar series. The second one that I love is one called Dev, which is a little known tech platform. Dev.to is a great place to go and look. And my new favorite and a little bit of a new obsession that I have at the moment is TikTok. I'm finding a lot of people are taking to TikTok these days, and you can find the most incredible talent out there. So those were my top 3, Max. So guys, working in recruitment is a tough gig, to be honest. It really and truly is. I mean, if you've been in the industry for over 5 years, give yourself a pat on the back. Because, you know, it really takes tenacity. You have to be resilient. And, you know, when everyone looks at me in these big eyes when they're new in the industry and they say, I want to work in recruitment because I just want to help people. I love people. And, you know, like 3 months down the line, they're just like, I hate people. No one responds to me. This is really difficult. You know that that's actually that it's going to be tough. If you've hung around, well done, because it really isn't that easy. I mean, we need to start developing all of these skills and grow an extra thick skin if you're going to stay in the recruiting game. It takes courage, it takes patience, it takes energy, it takes perseverance, it takes love, because you're soon going to start hating most of the general population out there. I just got some questions. Okay, Sonia, well done. You love it when you get a response, even if it's not right now. Me too, because that's the person that you want to nurture and you want to keep the conversation flowing. Max says, you are healthcare, commonly watch buyers from comp websites to get to know the candidate before screening them. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Max, I love that. You can retire from my presentation because I'm getting into that now. And Charlotte, yes, it was dev.to. So for me, where I see people going wrong in this whole research piece and why they're not getting a response, and I wasn't being sarky during Jim's presentation when he said, you know, would you prefer 1 or 2? I preferred 2, but I didn't love it. So I was so happy when Uncle Steve popped up and said, actually, I don't like either of them. Because if you took the response number 2 and you added some personalization in there, it would have been far better. And for me, the piece that is missing, and I think this comes down to, well, I hope it comes down to a time factor, is the research. So us as recruiters and talent sources, we're busy, we're doing loads of things, we're juggling loads of balls. It's sometimes easier just to find some people online and bomb them a template and see what comes back. But if we took time to research each individual, get to know them better, then we could actually send a better outreach message. But before we do the research, we are relying on a pretty archaic outreach processes. So I chatted with the team from HighEasy. Lovely guys, really, they are a great team. And we looked at some stats, and I wanted to know before this presentation, what are the average reply rates when it comes to percentages? And it was really interesting to see that like a management level had the highest response rate, but it's still really, you know, these percentages are really low. Bearing in mind that if you added in like a drip feed sequence campaign, then the responses improved. And that is I'm a big advocate of doing that in your reach out. Don't just send one email and sit back or what we generally do is we send that one email, it's too long, you get the whole TLDR, too long, didn't read. And then our follow-ups are just that whole passive aggressive of, hey, did you get my first email? Took me a long time to write it. You know, we've got to start drip feeding information to our candidates, and HighEasy is great for that. Okay, it's already got this built-in campaign. But if you look at these percentages, they are quite low from an average reply rate. So this is what I really want to push up, because, you know, this kind of looks like my high school maths marks, which was never my strong point. So I want to really get these percentages to increase, because then we are going to be more effective at our roles. So if you have a look here based on industry, it does fluctuate. I don't know if any of you are recruiting in the techie space, how difficult it is to get responses from software developers. That's always a challenge. But you can see some industries are more open to this kind of communication from recruiters. So basically, when we send our outreach messages, the way that we're going to increase this response rate and get those percentages climbing like, you know, north very quickly is that we have to think about this research piece, because it's going to help us immensely. So when I say research, the reason that I talk about research is a couple of things. So the first I want to share with you is this, is that almost too many of us in this industry are too scared to go and leave that blue platform. And I'm talking about LinkedIn, right? So it's kind of like when you started your job, you signed some kind of a contract and you said, I'm not going to look outside of LinkedIn. I'm only going to stick to job boards. I'm going to stay in my lane and I'm going to look on LinkedIn. And it's almost like it's taboo that you can't go and look at other platforms. You can't look at someone on Insta or go and find their YouTube channel or Threads even that's now come out. So we need to start expanding our horizons, because not everybody is on LinkedIn. And I can promise you this much, that not everyone is on LinkedIn as much as us recruiters and talent sources are. Because we will respond to candidates very quickly, because we get really excited when people contact us, but passive talent, they don't really hang out on LinkedIn. It's really not their preferred spot. So when I say your researchers, where do you look outside of the job board that you might have found the person's CV on, or LinkedIn? Because there's a whole internet out there. So if you guys want to answer that in the chat, where do you cross-reference your candidates? I'd actually love to hear from you, because people represent themselves differently on different platforms, as we can see our friend Dolly here. So when you're representing yourself on different platforms, we can get to know the candidates better based on what they are saying about themselves. Okay, well done, Lena. Facebook, brilliant, brilliant, love that. So we want to get to know the candidates better, right? Because if we get to know the candidates better, we can send a better outreach message. And by saying better, I'm saying we can put in more personalization. Because how can I personalize an outreach from someone who's just got their information on LinkedIn? It isn't really enough information for me to work with. So I really encourage you to look further afield, use what is available. So pretty much, as I mentioned, 5 years of this, I've been running my recruiting business, and I always start wherever it is. That's amazing, Chris. Yeah, Dean DaCosta's Search Authority tool is an amazing one. There's also another tool, a Chrome extension called Candidate Lookup, created by Balash Parokse and his team, that also helps to cross-reference candidates across different platforms. I can put the link in the chat for that just after this. So whenever I start training teams, and this could be anywhere, I mean, I seriously have trained teams from Auckland to Vancouver, like, and everywhere in between, I always start with, if you go back in the last 6 months of your placements, where did you go and find those candidates? Like, where did they come from? At least 99% of people come back and say, I found them on LinkedIn or I found them on a job board. So the thing is that those people are being so hit up by recruiters. They're suffering from what I like to refer to as recruiter fatigue. They're already in interview processes. They've already got a lot of recruiters hounding them, chasing them. Why don't we go and look and find fresh talent? Why don't we go and look and find fresh talent on other platforms who already are not even thinking about changing jobs, but you're going to get them to leave jobs. So to doing your research, never ever reach out to a candidate that you have found on LinkedIn or a job board without actually going and running a Google search on them. So remember your basic Boolean, put the name into speech marks, and actually put as much information as you can into the search. Use me for an example. Vanessa Raath, South Africa, the name of my company, The Talent Hunter. And you will see that you are going to find out so much more information. I basically did this. I was playing around with this earlier this week. So if you go and search for me, Vanessa Raath, under images, you'll see different images that pop up. Remember to use the filters. You also will find videos. And what am I actually looking for here is I'm looking for something that I can use to personalize my outreach message to the person. So if I was reaching out to myself, I could say, hey, I listened to your webinar on hot sauce. It was really interesting. And I really like this point that you mentioned. So straight away, the personalization is there. And that's what we're aiming for, is a really good message, really well written, you being a human being and mentioning one or two or even three things that are unique to this individual. If you have a look over here, Shannon mentioned this book earlier, Katrina Collier's book. I'd get a shout out in it. Also get a shout out in Greg Savage's book. So that's also something that you could say. I was reading this book, saw your name. Okay, straight away, it's a bit more of a warm reach out as opposed to just going and, shooting from the hip and sending a templated message that you're going to send to 50 other people. Also, the next filter was news, and you can go and see, I saw this article. So there are so many things that we could be doing when we find the right candidate that we could be mentioning in our outreach that we just don't. Also, what about other platforms? So Max has got a point here. He says he heard a podcast candidate was on. Reference candidates love thin mint. Sent her a recipe to make them at home and will ask to meet. Fantastic. And that is great, because I think that that's unique. It's going to make you stand out, and it really shows that you listen to her podcast. That's amazing. So which other platforms do you look on? Please go and start looking outside of the regular platforms. Another one of my favorites is Pinterest, because people pin on their board things that they are interested in. So that's one of the easier ones. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. There are so many out there that you can choose from. And remember, it's not professional stalking. It's actually just doing our research so that we can send people a better message. Even if, for example, I see on Facebook that this person's, quite athletic, quite fit, I can see that they run races. I don't always mention that, or I don't always feel this compelling urge to say, I looked at your Facebook profile, but I might end my email, if you do this, with, I'm just heading out for a run, or I'll be out for the next hour, just going to the gym, or whatever it is, but I will be back online after that. And that's creating that personal human connection. Now, you never want to lie, but if it's something that you do, then go for it. I think that's another thing just to mention at this is, you don't always need to mention where you found someone. I think, as people were laughing earlier about, I hope this email finds you well, like pet hate gets an instant delete. So on that point, when you are messaging people, you need to think about, what can you say and what can't you say? So you don't have to say, my personal favorite being an email from someone and say, I stumbled across your profile on LinkedIn. And you're like, oh, okay. But you're messaging me on on LinkedIn. So obviously you saw my profile. Like, let's get creative here. So we don't need to say to someone, I found you on Facebook. I then went and looked at Instagram. I then looked to look for you on TikTok, etc., etc., etc. But you can just say, you know, tailor and make that personalization without referencing these platforms, but you will know the person better. So just a few questions over here I want to quickly answer. Is there a line between ethical sourcing and invading personal space? Sonia, my opinion with that is if anything's in a public domain, is it personal space? You're not going to reference it directly, but you are going to use it to improve your personalization. For example, with me doing this presentation tonight, I'm choosing to put myself out there. So if anyone messages me on LinkedIn and says, hey, I'd love to connect with you, I saw you speak at RecruitCon, like what was I expecting by being here? So, you know, I think there is a fine line, but if people are putting themselves out there, then reference it. Hannah, how do you balance this amount of investment time in outreach when you've got a desk of requisition? Okay, that is very true. So what I work with is like about a 60% template. So things like the company information, the company mission, their values, the role, that doesn't need to change. I'm just going to change a paragraph or 2 or 3 throughout my messaging. And that paragraph is going to have my personalization, which is going to kind of just make the person realize that they're special. And that's what I want. So what are we looking for? So when we're looking at people on these different platforms, because people share different things on different platforms, I could be looking for a recent certification or a qualification. It could hint, you know, what's the next career move? Where's this person going to? So if you congratulate someone on getting a new qualification they put on their LinkedIn profile, this is not their personal space, they've shared it. Any new achievements at work, whether they're the salesperson of the month, of the quarter, whatever it might be, you could see, do you have any friends, colleagues, or peers in common that you could actually reference? This always works well. Or was the person a guest on a podcast or a webinar? I mean, that's my favorite one because you can go and listen to it and get a better understanding of that person. Guys, just a big tip here. You can listen to anything on double speed and still understand what people are trying to get out there. It's almost like listening to a South African speak. We all speak really quickly. So, yep, that's we're used to that. But remember, you can speed things up. Also, other things that we could be looking at, a thought piece which they've had in the media, you know, were they interviewed about something recently? A blog or an article or a publication that they put together, maybe it was on their company website, something that you can reference, you really enjoyed this, you learned a lot. A presentation, you know, saw you speaking at RecruitCon. Was it something that was online, something that was at a conference? Maybe you were there, maybe you weren't even there, but you saw the title of their presentation and the breakdown, and you wish you had been there. So I've even got to chat to people, especially people in the tech space, by saying, I see you presenting about this next week. I would love to be there. However, you know, geography is normally what gets in the way with me. Or any hobbies that you're looking for. You know, you see someone's a football fan, you can talk about your work football team. That could be something that interests them. They don't need to know that you saw them playing football for their company team on Facebook. Okay, it's all about doing a little bit more research on the individual. Another thing is that, you know, if you're posting an ad and dealing with a lot of ad response, that's incredibly time consuming, right? So what I find is that if I'm only doing outbound, which is what I generally do, in outbound messages to folks, I actually have more time because I'm not going through 150 CVs that, you know, maybe 2 of them are suitable when I post a job advert. So that's how I free up a lot of time as well, Hannah, to answer your question. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people that we're human. Now, I think Jim's deep fake was amazing. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I want to prove to you guys I'm real. I feel like I need to like hit my head on the face here, slap myself around a bit. But that's what people are looking for. They don't want to deal with deep fakes. They don't want to deal with robots and chatbots. So by you reaching out, showing your personality, what you're doing is that you are opening your door a little bit. And that's what you want them to do. You want them to open their door a little bit. Let the real person out. Let their personality come through. Because then you're going to have a much better human connection with that individual. Sure, we can use ChatGPT to put together our first drafts of messages, but I always encourage people in my AI workshops to make sure it sounds like you, because no one speaks like ChatGPT. Okay. First of all, it's incredibly long-winded and verbose, but also it's a bit of a people pleaser. So always try and restrict your results if you are using it. And just remember, what you can bring to the table is your human. And I'm not saying don't use GPT. I use it daily. It's amazing. But just be careful where you use it and what do you put out there as your final product. So basically, folks, what you are trying to do with your outreach messages is that you are making the person on the receiving end of your message, your email, your in-mail, whatever it is, and I prefer an email, is you want to make them sit up and you want to make them say, wow, Vanessa really did her homework on me. This message couldn't have been sent to 50 of my other colleagues. This is fantastic. I know that I now need to respond. And as Sonia was saying earlier in the chats, is that I'd rather get a response saying no for now, or no, I've still got 3 months left on my contract. Can we chat again in a month or two? Than actually not hear anything. Because that, let's face it, is pretty soul destroying. So guys, let's not be that type of recruiter with our messages. Just putting it out there. There is a line. I appreciate there is a line. And for me, if you can find it online, you can use it in your outreach, okay? But you still have to keep it professional. Yes, absolutely. Building candidate rapport is a critical skill, because don't we all want candidates for life? I mean, if you're going to be a recruiter for life or a talent sourcer for life, wouldn't you rather have a candidate for life, which is great. Okay, perfect. So the one word that I actually found, which is another McKinsey quote over here, is that the benefits of effective personalization actually boils down to loyalty, which actually touches on the comment recently in our chat, is that it's candidate rapport or it's loyalty. And this is what McKinsey points out is basically the key that is going to let you be better at driving repeat engagements. So loyalty is so important, because I don't believe that if you're using purely, GPT, you're not editing it like Jim showed us, you're not putting your own spin on it, you're not letting your personality come through, I don't think that you're going to get as good a response rate. And I've seen it with people in their LinkedIn posts, and you can see, oh, they've obviously used some kind of GPT to write that post, and the engagement is actually very low. So use it, yes, use it for your first or second or third draft, and then go and add your personality onto that. So what if we don't do this research? What if we decide, nah, not listening to that crazy South African, she hasn't got good advice? What is going to happen as a result? Well, all I'm saying is that you have got one shot, folks. So you have got one shot to get that candidate's attention, because if you don't get it in your initial outreach, all they're going to do is to start messing around with email settings. They're going to be blocking you. You're never going to get in touch with them ever again. So just as a word of warning, you have one shot to nail that purple squirrel. What are we basically going to do? How are we going to approach them? Because if we don't, actually, the cons are just going to be really ridiculous. So if we don't make sure that we're personalizing our outreach, we're doing our research so that we can personalize our outreach, basically no one is responding to us. And this is something that's really important, because we need people to respond to us. If people aren't responding to us, how do we continue with our jobs? I mean, how many of you have sat back and said, I found the perfect candidate, if only they would respond to my email, if only they would accept my connection request? And at that point, I'm like, well, why are we stopping there? Why are we not trying to phone them? Why are we not tracking them down? Why are we not emailing them? Also, what happens a lot is that if we don't do the research, then we just think that we're going to mass mail a whole lot of people, and we're going to use that whole spray and pray approach, which unfortunately will maybe get a very small response rate, but it's not going to get you as high as if you had spent more time doing your research and looking at those response rates. It is always a lot higher when you do your research and you send a personalized message, proven time and time again. So basically, we go back to point number one. No one's responding to us. How are we supposed to do our jobs if no one is responding to our messages? You know, if we don't have that personalization, how many times, I'm sure that you guys are awesome at your jobs, you getting headhunted frequently, how many times you just have that delete, instant delete? What a poor reach out message, delete, which kind of results in no one responding to us. And this is the problem, right? Is that we need to get people to respond to us. And the reason why we need to get people to respond to us is that so we can continue with our recruitment processes. So I think you guys get the message there. Okay, so a few ideas. I want to give you a couple of tips and tricks that we can use to help increase those response rates after we've done the research. Okay, if they didn't respond, how many follow-up emails do you send? Okay, great. So I normally go with an email campaign of 5 to 6 emails, and I normally run that over a 14-day period, so 2 weeks. So what I'll normally do is send the first email, and I play around with my timings, which you can do in HighEasy. Send one in the morning, send one at lunchtime, send one in the evening, and then depending on when people answer, just try and replicate that when I'm responding to them. But I normally go with about 5 or 6, and every single email is something new. So what I focus on in my sequence is maybe 1 is about the company that I'm talking about. 2 is about the role and why the role is so effective for someone. The 3rd could just be a meme or something. The 4th could be, you know, the company's mission and values and why you would want to work here. The 5th could just be about the perks. And then the biggest one that you always have to include is your breakup email. So your final email should always be, I like to refer to as my dear John, is this is it, we're breaking up, I can see you're not responding, you are obviously quite happy where you are working. And why do we send that, dear John? Because choose Bob, that's the one that most people are going to respond to. Again, have proven it time and time again. It always happens. Murphy's Law, 2 weeks into the process, now everyone's responding because they're telling you they're going to miss your emails because they've been so entertaining. And you're like, well, you could have told me that on email number 2, right? So you have to have that breakup email. It's really important. So just a couple of things. Exactly. Take it away and then everyone wants it. Guys, please use some color. Let's brighten up our lives a little bit. Everyone's sending email in black and white these days. It doesn't have to be the whole message. It can be if it's a subtle color change. I had someone in my previous job who was the ops director, was employed, and she never used to read my emails because she was a busy lady. So her favorite color was turquoise. So all I did was I changed all my emails to turquoise. And suddenly she was reading my emails and responding to me. So figure out, how does the person fit in? Maybe you can change a paragraph, maybe you can change a couple of words, but use some color. Putting in links also helps to kind of change the color. And also, memes are great. They do work better in the tech industry. What also works well is photos. You know, photos of your team, photos of the office that you're trying to recruit somebody into, photos of the canteen, photos of a team build. Also links, remember, links also help to change color. And also your email signature. You know, send them to your careers page. Don't put your Calendly link there. I did that once, big mistake. I've never been so busy in my life. But what I do say on my email signature is, this email was sent at a convenient time for me. Please respond at a convenient time for you, which shows I'm not a pushy recruiter. Like, respond when you get a chance. And it just kind of sets the tone for your communication. So also subject lines are really important. I want to just touch on these a little bit. Personalization, your subject lines does increase your open rates by 40%. So you need to think, what would be personalization for that person? It could be a name, it could be a company, it could be a job title, it could be a tech stack. Also, relevant is important. So if you've got relevant subject lines, and maybe something that's happening in the industry, you guys shooting out the other end of the recession, I'm thinking positive here, let's get things back on track in the US, that would be amazing. Also, short and sweet. Most people are going to be opening up these emails on their phone. Let's keep it under 50 characters, not 50 words, 50 characters, so that people can see it when they open it up on their mobile devices. So don't underestimate the importance of your subject lines, because a lot of the time it really does determine whether someone's going to answer that email or not. And in closing, guys, big thing, drip feed campaigns, sequencing of your emails. Please, let's not send them because of these reasons. Don't forget who you've sent messages to. Use automation, use tools. You've got them now, okay? Try and remember they're trying to see who you've sent messages to. It's a nightmare. I mean, you have to sit down, and the old days, like, write down who you had messaged and emailed. Guys, tools out there that do it. HighEasy being one of them. Yes, time is a factor with this. I completely get it. But you know what? If you want to see those reply rates jumping from like 8%, 9%, 10% to hitting more like 25, 30, 40%, and it can be done, it's actually going to be worth your time investment. Also, I know this is a big thing in the UK. If there's anyone from the UK here, also typically South Africa, you don't want to come across as too aggressive. So you just think, oh, I don't want to send more emails. I'm begging the person. But guys, you're not begging them if you're giving them lots of information, right? You're begging them if you're just sending messages of, hey, did you read my first email? But if you keep feeding them information, that's interesting. Also, rejection is hard. You don't want to feel it again. But guys, we're recruiters, we're resilient, we're tenacious, we're thick-skinned. We just have to pick ourselves up again. So guys, I'm coming up to time. I'm just going to make it. So that's really good. Please, if you have any more questions that you're not going to be able to ask now, please, would you connect with me on LinkedIn? I would appreciate that. You can ask questions there. I love to grow my network and connect with people all over the world. And if you have got any other questions or you want to do some free training, there it is. There's my contact details. I'd love to hear from you. I just saw one question pop up, Amy. What's the best tracking system or strategy do you recommend? So to be honest with you, I use HighEasy to track my outreach emails. I think they're brilliant. That's why I'm here presenting for them. Well past my bedtime, I'll let you know. But my strategy, to be honest, is learn from your campaigns. So if your campaigns are getting a lot of response and a lot of traction for that industry sector, for that level of individual, then repeat it. Okay, so you've got to check and see what is working and then replicate. So it can be a little bit of hit and miss. You can always do some A/B testing. That always works well, and see how you go. But guys, thanks for all of the comments in the chats. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It's been amazing. And yeah, have a good day, the rest of you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And just building off of that last question, kind of one in the Q&A section that I think is worth touching on is, what are your thoughts on tracking open rates and click-through rates as kind of a metric? I think you kind of alluded to it, right? We want to be tracking these things, but if you could expand on that a little bit as well, I think it's a good one to touch on.
I think that's important because, I mean, open rates are good, because you also don't want that email to be going to, you think you're doing such a great job and next thing is going to an unattended like inbox, that's not going to help. So you do need to track these things. I mean, it's absolutely imperative. So your open rates are great. Because is the email being delivered to the correct address? Has the subject line got their attention? And then click rates, but people can only click if you're putting links. So you have to put in links. You have to send people in the right kind of direction. So yes, for me, every single message that you send needs to have a link to click on. Even if I introduce myself and say, my name is Vanessa, I hyperlink my name to my LinkedIn URL, because sure, they're going to go and look on other platforms and they're more than welcome to, because that's the internet. It's free and public and open. But I would prefer them to go and look at my LinkedIn. So that's where they must start. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a sense, right, of like how candidates are resonating with the messaging, whether it's, to your point, the subject line, or are they making it through the email, right, to click on that link that's at the very bottom of the message. Yeah. So totally agree.
And because also, if we don't measure, how do we improve? And that's just like everything in life, right? If you send a really rushed bad message and no one's clicking through, well, you got to do better next time.
Optimize. Yep, absolutely.
All the time.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions in the chat here, but if we have any final burning questions, drop them right in.
And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate your time. It's been great. I've seen a lot of new names in the chats, which I haven't seen before, so that's amazing. A lot of old, well, not really old. I mean, I don't know if Uncle Steve's around, but not old, but like older. But yeah, but names popping up. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Favorite wine? I actually think it's a bit late for wine, to be honest with you guys. Any red, any Merlot or any Pinot Charge or something like that is great. We're going to a new wine farm this weekend, so I'm very excited.